Welcome viewers. Welcome to another video of BioGuide. Thanks for all of your support and response to my previous videos. Now today I'm very excited to declare you that BioGuide is going to launch concept guide series. Concept guide series are nothing, but I know there are many processes which you have studied from book in paragraph format. You have studied in points as from notes, but sometimes it becomes very difficult for you to recollect the exact processes. So it becomes easier if you study things in a mind mapping or in a flowchart format. So from BioGuide, I've decided to make concept guide series. In this series, we will express some of the important processes of different topics using small flowcharts and diagrams. So it may be helpful to you in such a way that even before the day of exam, you can get a quick through to my videos and can recollect the exact processes by seeing these flowcharts. So these are like last minute preparation things. So today the topic which I have selected is techniques in molecular biology. Later, according to your demand, I will make new videos. Please write your demand in comment section after watching my video that which portion you need discussions. Today, first which I have chosen, that is preparation of cDNA library. As you all know that cDNA are complementary DNA. In our body DNA, normal DNA, there are basically two parts. One is exon and another is intron. Introns are the parts which are not going to be expressed. On the other hand, several exons together merge to form mRNA. So from this mRNA, the functional genes are there and we can get the protein. So suppose you want to get the particular DNA sequence of a particular gene. In that case, it is easier for you to get the mRNA and make the complementary DNA of the respective gene. It will be helpful to you to identify the exact sequences of the gene. So let's see how to prepare cDNA library. Initially, as we all know that eukaryotic mRNA has some special characteristics. Among them, one is that its 3' end contains poly A tail. So, as we all know, according to Watson-Crick base pairing, adenosines always forms hydrogen bond with thymidines. So, if we use oligo DT primer, this can be helpful to trap the mRNA from eukaryotic cells. So all the mRNAs can be trapped using oligo DT primer. Once the mRNAs are trapped and collected, then we can help them using DNTPs. We can extend this region and we can make the fast cDNA copy from the mRNA. This copy is cDNA because it is complementary to mRNA. Now, since it is a kind of RNA-DNA hybrid, so we have to remove the RNA portion using RNase enzyme. And then we can add a poly G tail in the 5' in the beginning. Actually, this portion becomes the 5' since this was the 3' of mRNA. This becomes 5'. So at the 3' end, we can add poly G tail. This poly G tail is helpful for synthesis of complementary strand of this DNA. Using oligo C primer, we can now make complementary strand of this DNA. Now our double-stranded cDNA is ready. But still there are many enzymes, DNAs and others which can cause breaking or destruction of this double strand. To avoid this, we can protect this cDNA by selective methylation using some methylase enzyme. And if you now going to make a library, if you want to ligate this cDNA portion with your vector DNA, you can add linker DNA. Linker are some sequences, palindromic sequences of which can be recognized by specific restriction enzyme. So suppose we have taken the restriction enzyme EcoR1, we will use EcoR1 restriction site, double-stranded EcoR1 restriction site, and we will use ligase enzyme to ligate these at the two termini of our double-stranded complementary DNA. Once we have done this joining, we will use EcoR1 to cleave this linker portion, and similarly we will also cut the vector DNA using EcoR1. Thus they will produce this overhang, which overhang will ultimately help them to ligate, and after this ligation we can do either this in lambda or in other vector, and ultimately we will grow these cells containing cDNA, and thus we will be able to prepare cDNA library. So just remember these points which are important, because from each of these points analytical questions comes in CSIR NET. Now coming to another very common molecular biology techniques for amplification of target sequences of DNA. Suppose within a long double-stranded DNA, a target portion within a particular region you want to amplify. That target portion is called amplicon. So for this, you have to basically selectively replicate that targeted region. So polymerase chain reaction is a process by which you can selectively amplify the target region within a DNA using suitable primer which is complementary to the flanking sequences of your target part. There are three portions and it contains some, I have given here some brackets. These brackets denotes respective temperature. So for this, there are basically three parts in which you have to do certain thing. For number one, you have to do denaturation, then annealing and elongation. So basically 95 degree is the temperature in which we can do denaturation of DNA. Then for annealing it is about 56 degree Celsius, and for if you want to elongate it is about 72 degree. This is the very common. You can change this annealing temperature according to the compatibility of the primer. So let me explain you these things. Is we are using a machine called thermal cycler which can selectively change the temperature according to the programmings done. So what we have to going to do, we have to first make this double-stranded DNA into single-stranded. Once the single-stranded DNA it has become, we are going to anneal the primers which are complementary to the flanking sequences of our target site, and for this a particular temperature is important. The temperature which is suitable for annealing is called TM. Now once this has been joined, now using a specified polymerase called Taq polymerase. The name Taq comes because it is derived from Thermus aquaticus bacteria, which is thermostable bacteria, and from this bacteria the polymerase which we get, that is Taq polymerase. This Taq polymerase is used because in high temperature it has the fidelity to perform the polymerization reaction. So in 72 degrees Celsius, Taq polymerase utilizes the DNTP and some buffers. By using that, they can elongate the region which is from the 3' end of the primers. Once this has been done, from the selective portions, numerous copies can be generated. So thus, at least in 10 cycle, we can get 1024 copies of our target DNA sequence. Now, how to identify whether exactly in my PCR is successful, I have got my desired DNA fragments. To identify that, we can perform agarose gel electrophoresis, because the targeted region, the base pair of the targeted region is known to us. What we can perform, we can allow in a gel to run the DNA ladder using different base pair of fragments, and in this we can get two different fragment after performance of PCR, because one will be bigger, that is a template DNA, and one will be in our target location. Suppose this was our target base pair, and if we get bands in this particular location, we will be confirmed that our PCR is successful. We have got the target sequences. Along other this, you can get some band under this also. Here also you may have some band like this. These bands are due to primer dimer. Sometimes these primers themselves get joined and can create some band like this. So these are primer dimer band. Okay, so these bands you don't confuse with these bands. These bands are not our target band. This particular band is our target band, because we will identify that suppose this base pair was our target base pair. If I get band in that location only, we will be confirmed that this is our PCR has become successful. So suppose if you don't want to get the result in the gel form, you want to minimize your time. Not only that, you want to be confirmed that in each cycle the amplification is happening in a proper way or not. For that, what can you perform? For that, there is a type of PCR called real-time PCR. Here in this particular slide, I am explaining RT real-time PCR, means reverse transcription real-time PCR, in which we can amplify the target portion of cDNA, because I told you cDNA is the actual sequence which can encode all the expressing sequences. So as a result, if from the cDNA, if we amplify the target sequences, it will be easier for us to identify the particular location. So for that, first we will make, as I have discussed already how to make cDNA, we can make cDNA from mRNA. Now once we are going to make cDNA, in real-time PCR, the basic strategy is that in each cycle, it will be visualized that whether the amplification is happening or not. For that, there are two strategies. There are many strategies, but basically these are the two widely used strategies which I am going to discuss today. One is using a double-stranded binding dye. The name of the dye is Cyber Green, or any other intercalating dye which can particularly bind at the double-stranded DNA. Or we can use specific probe. For example, here we have used Tachman probe. Okay. So what are these things? Let's discuss. Suppose first I am going to explain the Cyber Green process. Cyber Green is a type of dye which can only bind specifically to the double-stranded DNA. So like in the previous step, we will do first denaturation and then annealing with the primer. In the beginning, these Cyber Green dyes will not bind to the DNA since it is single-stranded. Once the polymerization will begin, this dye will intercalate with the double-stranded DNA. Not only they can bind on the double-stranded DNA, but also they can emit fluorescence when the elongation is going. More the number of DNA copies, more Cyber Green will be able to bind on the double-stranded DNA, and the fluorescence intensity will increase. There is a particular software designed for RT-PCR or real-time PCR, in which increasing cycle of PCR, the intensity of the fluorescence will be increased, and you will be able to identify whether in each cycle our particular DNA strand is being amplified or not. Nowadays, real-time PCR is widely used because you know their coronavirus detection is going on, and for this coronavirus detection, real-time PCR is being used. And since coronavirus genome is RNA, so from that we can make cDNA, and then we can perform real-time RT-PCR. So this was Cyber Green procedure. Other than this, there is another. This is a consists of a small stretch of oligonucleotide, which at the two end bound with two fluorophore. One is fluorophore and another is quencher. So fluorophore has in high energy, this fluorophore gets excited and they can emit the energy. Once this quencher and the fluorophore both are bound together, then the excited fluorophore, the energy can be transmitted to the quencher. As a result, no other energy conversion will be there. It will be excited and the energy will be transferred to the quencher. Now, when after giving polymerase and everything, when it will be elongated, suppose after annealing, when the primer has been annealed, when the DNA is elongating, then due to the elongation of DNA, there will be a heating, and due to this heating of oligonucleotide with this quencher portion, here the red is the fluorophore and yellow is the quencher. Okay, so suppose it has been heat with this fluorophore portion, then what will happen? This will be detached from this. As a result, the fluorophore and the quencher are not together, so this fluorophore will emit fluorescence. So more the double-stranded DNA will be there, more will be fluorescence. This type of probe is called Tachman probe. Why it is a probe? Because it is complementary to our target sequence, and it gets bind during the annealing of primer. This probe also gets bind to the template DNA, and once the elongation is continuing, it can detach the quencher with the fluorophore. Once the quencher is being detached, the fluorophore will emit fluorescence, and the fluorescence intensity will increase if more number of copies of DNA are produced. As a result, you can see fluorescence intensity getting increased with the each cycle of PCR, and you will be confirmed that yes, your polymerization is becoming successful. This is the basic strategy of real-time PCR. Now there are some molecular biology techniques which are generally using for fingerprinting or to identify certain kind of DNA fragment pattern. For this, we have discussed here four type of, these are molecular markers. Number one, RFLP, RAPD, AFLP and SSR. The RFLP, in which the basic strategy is that in our body, in our DNA, we have restriction site. But the restriction site, I have discussed that these are palindromic sequences. These sequences are identified by restriction enzyme, and thus they can cleave the specific location within the DNA. Now, suppose in a restriction site, there are some bases get changed, and due to the change of the base or nucleotide, maybe the restriction site can get modified. As a result, in different parts, we can get different band fragments from RFLP. So suppose we have taken a particular DNA and we have treated this with a restriction digestion. So in normal case, suppose we get this type of restriction fragments. Now suppose due to some particular disorder or due to mutation, the restriction site get lost. So as a result, we can get some band which are different from our band. So when we get both of the band same in normal and mutated, then we consider monomorphic band. And when we get different band in normal as well as in mutated, then the new bands are called polymorphic bands. So like this, we can identify a particular normal versus a diseased condition or mutated condition using RFLP. Now coming to RAPD. The basic strategy of RAPD used to use random primer. Random oligonucleotide can be complementary to any part of the DNA, and they can be readily bound to it, and the polymerization will begin. Because they are different types of primer, they can bind at any location within the DNA. Several fragments of PCR products can be developed, and if we do electrophoresis of this PCR product, you can get different product from the same set. You can from the same set of DNA, using different sets of primer, you can get different fragments, and thus it will be helpful to identify the common bands, and you can identify the target region. Now coming to AFLP, which is amplified fragment length polymorphism, in which suppose already you have got a DNA which has flanking sequence using some restriction enzyme. So suppose the DNA contain a flanking sequence of restriction enzyme, and you have digested the DNA using the respective restriction enzyme. For example, here I have used EcoR1 and MSC1. So here in the left side, the sequence is complementary to EcoR1, and in the right side, the sequence is complementary to MSC1. So as a result, the digestion with this double digestion with this EcoR1 and MSC1, we can get fragment like this. This is our fragment. Now what happened? Once we are done with this, we can join some flanking sequence at the both side. This I have used some question mark here. This question mark denotes any sequence, but the sequence is known. Now when we have flanked the overhang using this known sequence, then we can amplify using our target primer to the both strand of the DNA. So we know that only the selective portion of the region is being amplified. Even the DNA in which we are amplified, the DNA is also selective. We are not taking whole genomic DNA. We are taking the genomic DNA, we are causing it restriction digestion, and we are annealing with our known sequence to it. So even the template is becoming very much targeted, and we are very much sure about the template DNA. Now we are using primers against the flanking sequence, which is complementary to the flanking sequences. So now here the means if you there is no confusion that the primers will also bind selectively to the target region only, and so more error free PCR products we will get in amplified fragment polymorphism. So as a result, we can get different bands using this different pattern, and by seeing this pattern we can get these are basically molecular marker from which we can identify normal versus diseased, or if you can even trace the molecular evolution, because if there is a sequence is conserved and you can do AFLP of the conserved sequence between different phyla, you can get the different banding pattern, and you can identify that which particular organism is closer to which one. So like this, evolution tracing can also be done using these molecular techniques. Similarly, another evolution tracing is SSR, which is simple sequence repeat, which is also microsatellite DNA. Microsatellite DNA has dinucleotide repeats, and in which in this particular we have taken 3 alleles of the same gene. And in the 3 alleles, suppose in the allele 1, the length of the dinucleotide repeat is like this. In the allele 2, the length of the dinucleotide repeat is like this, and the 3 it is like this. So at the flanking sequence, if we use primer and amplify, we will get length of different band, and even in the combination also we will get different band. So thus it will be easier for us to trace that again these we can identify the normal versus the disease, or which allele is responsible for which particular phenotype, that can be also identified. For example, I'm telling, suppose a particular phenotype you have identified, so normal versus the different phenotype, you will get DNA from two different group of individuals. Now if you do this SSR, you can see that what allele is basically present in normal and what allele is present in the case of diseased individual, and thus it will be easier for you. For example, I'm telling many disease that can be occur due to change in the allele pattern, so those can be identified using simple sequence repeat. Now there are many students ask me that, ma'am, what is the basic difference between RFLP, RFPD, AFLP and SSR, which we cannot understand. For that I have made a chart for you to understand. Basically the principle of RFLP is restriction and sudden blotting. Means first you will restriction digest the fragments and then blot them and get the gel banding pattern. In RFPD you can use random primer to amplify. In AFLP, you can selectively, you first do restriction and selectively amplify, and in microsatellite, you can simple sequence repeat, that you can do PCR. Now here, the polymorphism can be of single base change, while in the microsatellite, it is repeat in the length. And the genomic abundance in genomic but whole genome, the RFLP markers are very high, while microsatellites are medium. And it is not that much polymorphic. The RFLP sequences are basically common, so medium polymorphism is found. But in the case of AFLP, since we can get the targeted region of the DNA, we can get very high and high bands of polymorphic band in AFLP and microsatellite. So only 2 to 10 microgram DNA is required for RFLP, while in the case of RAPD, it requires 10 to 25 nanogram, in AFLP 500 nanogram, and in microsatellite 50 to 100 nanogram DNA is required. And for RFLP, the within the sequence information we cannot get, but in microsatellite we can even get it. And radioactive requirement may or may not be required. And suitable application for RFLP is comparative mapping, as I told you, between normal versus disease, like this. And here, marker associated selection in RLPD also we can do different kind of marker associated selection in AFLP also, and here region specific mapping we can do using microsatellite. Now coming to, suppose you are going to identify whether your DNA is bound with a protein or not. For that, we can perform two molecular technique. In the left side, it is DNase footprinting or nuclease footprinting assay, and in the right side, it is electrophoretic mobility shift assay. So suppose in a particular DNA, using DNase enzyme, DNase can cut randomly at any point within the DNA and can give different fragments when we will run it in the agarose gel electrophoresis. So, but if a DNA is bound with a particular protein, maybe this portion is masked by the DNase enzyme, because the DNase enzyme cannot get access to this particular region. As a result, this region gets protected and it will not be broken. So the fragments of this region will not be generated. As a result, in gel, we will get a space, a gap in this location. This gap is because some fragments are not generated, because here it will cut, then after this it will cut here, here and here. This portion is not being cut by the DNA since it is protected by protein. So you will be confirmed that yes, my DNA, if you know that in which particular base pair the DNA protein bound can be found. So if you get that yes, there is a footprint, we are not getting any band there, we will be confirmed that yes, my DNA is bound with a protein. Similarly, another technique is that electrophoretic mobility shift assay, or EMSA. This is also called EMSA. In EMSA also the same thing. In a normal DNA fragment, we are not using any DNase. We are just causing the normal DNA fragment to be agarose gel electrophoresis. And if a DNA fragment is bound with DNA binding protein and along with free DNA is there, we will get two type of band here in this group. One will be the free DNA and another will be the bound DNA. Since the molecular mass of the bound DNA will be higher than the free DNA, we will get band higher than the free DNA. So thus, by seeing this band, we will be confirmed that yes, my DNA is bound with a particular protein. So these are the two techniques which we basically use to identify whether my DNA is bound with any protein or not. Now coming to our last discussion for today's video. Here I have discussed about sequencing method, and the simplest DNA sequencing method is Sanger sequence. It is one of the earliest DNA sequencing method and easier, but it is time consuming, and the problem is it is not that much accurate. So as a result, nowadays many new shotgun sequencing, next gen sequencing and new sequencing techniques have been developed, but still you should know the basics of the sequencing. This sequencing is Sanger sequencing, named after the developer Sanger. So now before we go into the detail of the mechanism, I want to make you recollect something that we all know. DNA contain deoxyribose. Deoxyribose contain in the 2 prime, matlab in the second carbon there is one hydrogen instead of hydroxyl. Like in normal ribose, in second and third carbon there are hydroxyl radical. But in the case of DNA or deoxyribose, in the second carbon, instead of OH, there is one H. This is called DNTP. Now, because of this 3' OH, we can do the polymerization reaction and the chain elongation of DNA can occur. Now, what will happen if we change this OH into another H? So, because of the absence of the free OH, the chain elongation will be terminated. So using this particular NTP, it is called dideoxy. Why? Because both in second and third carbon, the oxygen molecule is not there. So dideoxy NTP. Okay. So using dideoxy NTP, we can do sequencing. So let's see. Suppose this is your target DNA, among which this particular region you know, this is known, and this particular region sequence you don't know. So you can design a primer for which is complementary to this region. Okay. And along with that, you will use polymerase DNTP, and along with DNTP, you will take dideoxy primers, dideoxynucleotides. So for you make your set into 4 different chamber. In one, you will take dideoxy ATP. In next, dideoxy CTP, then TTP and GTP. And then you add everything, the template DNA, polymerase, primer, DNTP into it, and they will eventually cause the polymerization. But whenever they will require ATP, then when dideoxy ATP will be bound to it, then after this dideoxy ATP, since it don't have any free 3' OH, the next nucleotide cannot be added and the chain elongation process will be stopped. So thus we will get some fragments of DNA here, some here, some here, and some here. So after getting all of these fragments, if we do agarose gel electrophoresis, we can get different banding pattern. Now you have to read the band. There are 2 ways of reading the band. Once you can read the band from the down. So if you read the band from the down, it will be C, then G, then again G, then T, then again, excuse me, first C, then A. C, G, A, G, T, C, A. This is the pattern. So how to identify from last, then you will see which is in the closer proximity. This is quite confusing. So make it easier. If you do like this from the down to below, you are actually doing from you are actually doing 5' to 3'. If you are reading from down, which I find quite confusing. So better read from above. Just remember, if you read from above, it is from 3' to 5', because I'm telling why. Because if you are reading this particular fragment, it is the heaviest. So because it is the heaviest, it might be at the end of the chain. So that is why. So for this, this particular band, if you start from this, then it is easier to study. G, A, C, T, G, again A, then G, then C. See, it is becoming easier. So read from this, and then your sequence will be 3' to 5' this. Now what you got, this is actually the complementary sequence of this particular region. This complementary sequence you got by this particular reading. Now I want to get the sequence of the template, right? I want to get the sequence of this. So for this, what we will do complementary of this. So from G, we know the complementary of G is C, then A, T, then again G, A, C, T, T, C, G. See, in our template also the same sequence was there. CTGA, CTTCG. So thus we will identify any sequence within the DNA. So this is one of the earliest method used by this. Since it was very time consuming, and that is why nowadays for identifying sequencing in a rapid way, we generally use other methods like shotgun sequencing and next gen sequencing. Those are also emerging nowadays. So thank you students for listening till the end of the video, and maybe I could help you to understand better some of the molecular techniques, because I know these all techniques you have studied from books. In books it is detailedly explained, but the thing is even learning the things many times we forget. So to remember, to recollect things, I personally recommend to study by using diagrams and flowcharts, because those can be within your brain for many longer duration. So for that I have made this video. If you people want this kind of video more, please write in the comment section. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to share with your friends, please don't hesitate to share with your friends. Send the link to them, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to get this kind of video more. Another thing I want to mention, in the description link I am giving one mail ID. If you people want this particular video in the format in PDF format, I can also provide you that, but please personally give me a mail in the mail ID if you people want this as a PDF. Thank you so much. We will meet very soon in the next video. So have a nice day.